All right, so welcome to week four's labs. Just to take a quick look at our task list for this activity, which is going to be focused on software installation, as we covered in this week's lecture. We're going to be looking at all four operating systems again: Windows 10 for our client side Windows system, Ubuntu client, Windows Server 2019, and then the Ubuntu Server. On the Windows 10, we're going to be using a tool called Nanite to automate some installations of common softwares that you'll see on a client system. We're going to be focusing on the Chrome browser, a tool called VLC, which is a video player software, and then Notepad++, which is an advanced version of the Notepad program that you're looking at right now. It's built into the Windows operating system, used frequently for doing coding and just taking regular notes too. Okay, on the Ubuntu side, we're going to be getting to the command line a little bit, and we're going to install the equivalent of the Microsoft Office suite, but it's an open source equivalent called Apache Open Office. And we're going to, again, do that from the command line. On our Windows server, we're going to be taking a look at a tool called Chocolatey, which is a package management software. It's a suite of tools, as a matter of fact. They have a lot more. It does a lot more than just package management, but we're going to be focused on the package management aspect of it. So we're going to install Chocolatey. And then once we have Chocolatey installed, we're going to use it to actually deploy another tool called Spiceworks, which is a open source enterprise management tool for you use it to manage things like your network and to do network monitoring. Has a help desk function. So as I mentioned before, server tools or enterprise software that you would deploy on a server tends to have more moving parts in it than the tools that you install on a client system. So Spiceworks will give us a nice introduction to that world. And then last, on our Ubuntu server, we're going to be going back to the command line. We're going to be installing MySQL, which is they have a commercial edition, but they also are popular as for having a open sourced SQL relational database. So we're going to be installing that database application on this Ubuntu server from the command line. All right, so as you can see, I'm now in my Windows 10 virtual machine. We got that launched. Hopefully you have already had that set up. You're able to access it without issue. But notice that when you're in this virtual machine, it's pretty blank. We haven't installed any software applications on it yet or made any major configurations. So we're going to get in there and we're going to remedy that right now. So first thing you want to do for this Windows 10 install, we're going to access a tool called Nanite. So Nanite is a web-based application. So we need to launch our web browser. Right now, the only one we have at our disposal is Microsoft Edge. Not my favorite browser in the world, but it's there, it's available, built into the Windows operating system. So we're going to go ahead and use that right now. Let's skip over that. We don't need that. And once our Edge browser finally decides to load, we're going to do a search for Nanite. All right, and here's our official website, nanite.com. So I'll go to that link. And the way Nanite works, again, as I mentioned, is a web app. What you'll do is you'll go right directly from the web app. You'll select what applications you want to package. So I'm going to scroll down a bit so you can see all the different options. So here they have them grouped. So under browsers they have Chrome. So I'm going to go ahead and select Chrome as one of my options. Just put a little check mark by it. Under this media group, there's VLC player. I mentioned VLC is a video viewing software. But you can see that there's tons of different software that have already been kind of approved and vetted by the folks who manage the night. And they've already figured out how to automate the basic installation of these software applications to make your job as an admin easier. The last piece of software I want to include in this automation is Notepad++. And there it is. All right, so now that I have all my apps selected, I can continue on to the next step, which is to download and run my custom installer. So you can see that this works on Windows 10, 8, and 7, and then you can also use the night on servers. So this is definitely a Windows kind of specific tool. So if you're on a Mac, this might not be of any use to you, but since we're in a virtual machine, to your even if you're on a Mac right now, to your VM, you're on a Windows machine, so the night will still work. All right, you can see that it's downloading our installer now. And it has completed. I'm going to open up the file location just to show it in the folder. You can see we have our custom installer here. It's got Chrome, Notepad, and VLC already bundled. So I'll just execute that. It's an executable file, so just double click on it to run it. It's been packaged with their own proprietary packaging software. All of the automated switches, that we call them, have been turned on to make this installation not silent, but a unattended installation. So besides just doing that double click to get things started, there's not going to be a whole lot of interaction from me as a user. I had to hit next there because in Windows 10 the UAC is still turned on, the user access control. So it's basically going to get your approval when you're doing administrative tasks like installing pieces of software. Note too that in order for the night to do this effectively, you have to be logged in as an administrator account. I'm logged in as a local admin right now, but if a normal standard user tried to do this, they would be blocked, or rather they be prompted to enter in a administrative password. And if they didn't have one, then they would be blocked. So you can see our Chrome installation running. If I hit show details, it'll give me a little bit more insight into what step in the process is occurring. And you notice again that there's a lot of different there were a lot of different programs there. So with this one too, you have the potential of automating possibly all of the software installation that your client systems might need and bundling them all up into one package. That becomes extremely useful if you're using this on a server. We're using this from a client perspective right now, but if we were pushing this out from a server, then you can see how helpful that would be, right? This one package that I push out that can then install, 5 or 10 different software applications on a client system. Or if we use the pull method that we talked about during the lecture, instead of making it, making users have to download multiple software applications individually, you as a systems administrator could, create a storage location or some central location. We call them repository, a repository for users to go to and then just download a single package that you created in the night that would then install those 10 software applications that they need on their system without, a lot of interaction, a lot of next, and putting in custom configurations. So super helpful. This is a super helpful tool. Definitely something that you want in your bag of tricks as a sysadmin. So this is going to take a little bit because, again, it's installing a couple of different software applications. I want to pause it for now, and we'll come back when the installs have completed. Okay, all of the installs have finished successfully, and you see that we get this this kind of summary screen showing us that everything's finished, and we have OKs down the board showing that the status for Chrome, Notepad++, and VLC Player are all okay. They installed just fine. For your evidence, your deliverable, for your evidence of the Windows 10 installation, one of your deliverables is going to be a screenshot of this summary page for the night. So make sure that after your installation completes, make sure you grab a screen clip or screenshot of this summary page to include in your deliverable for this particular task. Okay. Now we're in our Linux system, so we're going to get ready to install our OpenOffice application, which I mentioned before is like a open source equivalent of the Microsoft Office suite. So it contains a bunch of business applications like word processing software, spreadsheets, presentation software, things like that. Now, before we can do that, though, we have to remove a existing software that's already on Linux by default called LibreOffice. So we're going to do all this from the command line. We have options of getting this software from the GUI. We could go to the Ubuntu software store and probably do this, but we want to be able to automate this process. So being able to do this from the command line is really important. So the first thing we want to do in order to get this Libre software off of our system is we're going to launch the terminal. So if you don't have the terminal here on your side window like I do, or this search bar on it like I do, you can just click on the Show Applications option button down at the bottom left corner, and then you'll do a search for terminal. All right, and that'll bring up your terminal. I'll clear my screen. From this terminal, you're going to run the following command: sudo apt-get remove with a switch called purge, because it's going to remove everything, and it's going to purge LibreOffice. So we're going to get everything related to LibreOffice off of this machine, and then everything related to this Libex text cart, all these other plugins that or dependencies that the LibreOffice application has. We need to pull those off as well. TextCat dash data star, and we're going to run two commands back to back. If you want to join commands together in the Linux command line, those two ampersand symbols is a way of saying and. So we're saying run this sudo command and run this next sudo command, apt-get auto remove. Okay, since these are sudo commands, super user do commands, they're going to use root credentials. I'm logged in with an account that has root permissions, which is why it didn't prompt me that time. So let me know that it's going to get rid of all this stuff. It's confirming. I say yes to confirm, and then I let it do its thing. Just let that run for a while. Yes, get rid of that too. All right, now it's completed. I'll clear my screen. And if I go back and I look at my, not my desktop, but if I look at my show applications tool here, and I search for that LibreOffice, it's nowhere to be found. It's been completely purged. So that's good. That was successful. So now I'm all set to get ready to start the process of downloading and getting the OpenOffice software installed. Now, I mentioned before you can download OpenOffice from the App Store, but you can also get OpenOffice from their website. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Firefox. And we're going to do a search for Apache OpenOffice. And I got it in my search box right there. Apache OpenOffice download. Click on that. And then if I go to the Apache OpenOffice download, one of those links, it takes me to this page where I can actually choose the package I want to download. So it's already set to 60. It's since the system that I'm on, and already set itself to 64-bit Debian style Ubuntu. I don't want Japanese. I want English. And the latest version, which is the 4.1.9. So from that point, I can just hit download, and it'll start to download the software. Now the software is being hosted in what they call a mirror, so it's taking me to another site. There's a popular software repository for open source software called SourceForge. So that's where it took me to. It took me to SourceForge to actually get the software. I'm going to tell it to not open, which it might have defaulted here for you. I'm going to tell it to save. I want it to save to my computer, and then I'm going to hit OK. By default, when it saves, it's going to save it to the downloads folder. So I'm just going to give it a second to do that. It's downloading it now. And once the download is complete, I can go to my downloads folder. I'll minimize this Apache, and I can go to my downloads folder here, and you see that there's my file. In order for us to install this using the instructions I have over here, we need to move this file though. Typically, if this was a corporate installation, we probably would have this software up on a server. But since we're just doing it, we're kind of replicating what you would do in a work environment. We're just going to move it from this regular downloads page to another directory in the local operating system. So we're going to move it into a directory called temp. So I'm just going to right click on that and cut that. And then we go to other locations down here on the left side of the screen. It lets me search this computer, search the hard drive, and then you see there's that temp folder right there. I'll go into there and paste it. I've already done that. That's why it's there already, but you'll just paste that there. And now you have that Apache OpenOffice installation file where it needs to be for our command lines that we're about to run to work. All right. We can verify that too. So if I go to my terminal, notice that I'm in the /temp directory already. You might not be in that directory by default. You're more than likely in this CD. All right, once you're in your command line, you'll be presented with a prompt that looks like this. Probably will have the name of the account you created at Ubuntu, and then this little squiggly line is called a tilde. That's actually a shortcut for your user home directory on a Linux system. That's our current location. If we do the ls-al command, that'll list out all of the directories and files in this current location. So I'm looking at my home directory right now. This is what I have access to. Notice that our installation file for Apache OpenOffice isn't there. So we need to get out of this directory and move into another one. Clear my screen. I'm going to use the cd command, which stands for change directory, to move out of this current directory to where we just placed that file. And that file was placed in /temp or TMP. So I'll change directories there. Notice my prompt changed. So now it says /TMP or root TMP. And if I run that ls-al command again by pressing the up arrow a couple times on my keyboard, I can bring it up out of the history. And then I press enter and I get a whole long list of stuff that's in that directory. I'm going to scroll up a little bit and there it is. Notice that here. There's my Apache OpenOffice long name and then .tar.gz. So I'm in the right place now to be able to use this installation file. But in the state that it's in right now, I can't use it. That tar.gz is important because that tar.gz means that the file itself has been compressed. It's almost like if you're familiar with a Windows environment, when you zip a file, you compress it so it takes up less space on your hard drive. But when it's bundled up like that, you can't execute any of the files. You might not, depending on your operating system, you might not even be able to read the files until they've been uncompressed. So that's our next step here, is to uncompress those files, and we're going to use a command called tar in order to do that. Don't worry about what the switches mean, what the options here mean. Just follow along, tar.xvf, And then we're going to put in the name of the program we want to, or the package that we want to uncompress. It's going to be Apache _ open office star. Star is a wildcard character in the Linux command line and in the Windows command line, which basically just means that replace everything following what I just typed with whatever you want. Doesn't matter how many characters are. So it'll fill in a blank there, and then whatever after that blank is filled in, it's got to end in tar.gz. So this way it's going to decompress a bunch of files that were in that tar ball. So hit enter. You see it's going through now. It's locating them and taking tar off. Our next step is to actually run a command to kick off the installation now that they've been opened up. So to do that, we got to go back to our sudo command, superuser do, because this is a root level command. And then we're going to use another command called dpkg. There are two different types of installer packages that you'll typically run into in Linux. They have ones that are Red Hat based and ones that are Debian, which is another type of Linux based. Ubuntu is a Debian style Linux operating system, so it uses Debian software packages for all of its applications. That dpkg command tells it, okay, tells the system I'm getting ready to install a Debian installation package, and the -I means install. And now we're going to tell it what files we want to install. Everything, in this case, everything that starts off with en-us, debs, and slash, and then ends in a .deb. Every file that meets that format is going to be installed. Remember, the star is a wildcard character, so there's going to be a lot of blanks that get filled in. At that point, if you're not logged in or if you haven't run sudo yet on your system, you might get prompted for a password. So you just enter the root password and it'll let you continue on with the installation. So that finished out successfully. Clear my screen again. And the next part of the installation is or the final part of the installation is to do another sudo. So I'm just going to press my up arrows till I get to that last package install that I did. And I'm going to install a specific package called desktop integration. So this is going to give me some of the GUI tools, the graphical user interface tools for OpenOffice that I need in order to work with that software package. Right. So now we'll go and check it out to see if the software is installed. So I'm going to go now back at my desktop. I'm going to go to my Show Applications tool, click on that, and then do a search for OpenOffice, and there it is. There's my OpenOffice tool, and then these are some of the software applications that are bundled into that OpenOffice program. Double click on it to launch it so we can open up and take a look. It's probably just finalizing some parts of the install on its first launch, like most software applications do. But we can see that it's there. For your deliverable for this is a good screenshot to have. I like to see that OpenOffice screenshot there on your system, that splash screen. All right, so this is just taking me through the last steps to get ready to register it. And now my software is good to go. This is actually a better splash screen. Take a screenshot of this one. All right, and that's it for the Linux client. Next up is going to be our Windows Server 2019 installation, where we're going to install Chocolatey, and then we're going to use Chocolatey to install Spiceworks. All right, so I am in my Windows Server 2019 virtual machine, and we're going to get ready to install Chocolatey. So similar to what we saw on our Windows 10 client system, this server doesn't come with any other browsers installed in it besides the default Windows one. So I'm going to have to use Internet Explorer in order to get to a browser that I actually want to use. All right, so after messing around with Internet Explorer for a while, I was able to get the settings configured enough. Will reduce the security settings enough to allow it to let me search on Google. An easier way for you to do it would be to advise you to just run your Windows updates, and what it'll do is it'll get rid of, well, Internet Explorer still be there, but it'll upgrade you to having Microsoft Edge, and in that way you can just use the Edge browser that's built into later versions of Windows to do your searching. So I had to fight with it a little bit, but once I did that, I was able to use Google to download the Firefox browser. So I'm running Firefox now, running that installation now, so I don't have to go through the headache of using Internet Explorer. The reason that I'm going through all this is because the first part of our installation for this server is to get Chocolatey installed. And I want to have to keep fighting with IE in order to do that. All right, so now I got a good browser on the computer. So first thing I'm going to search for is we're searching for a tool called Chocolatey. And there it is, chocolatey.org. We'll visit their website. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Chocolatey is a package manager. That means it's a software that's designed for automating software installations. So similar to the Night, but this is similar to the Night, except with the Night, the Night's a web app, so it runs from their website. Chocolatey, you can actually install some of their products directly onto your system, and what we're going to actually be using is an integration into your command line. So we're going to install a version of Chocolatey that actually integrates into the PowerShell command line and allows you to run Chocolatey as a module of PowerShell, which is another one of the command lines that you have available to you in the Windows operating system. All right, so we're going to go to the products that Chocolatey has to offer, and we want the open source edition. That's the free one. They have a paid version too, but we want the free one. So we're just going to search to get that installation. And actually, it should be under chocolatey.org/install. So where the installation files should be. Here we go. Now there's instructions for how to install it. You can see that right here they list the requirements. We need Windows 7 or higher or Server 2003 or higher. We meet that requirement. We got to have at least PowerShell version 2. Server 2019 comes with PowerShell version 3 or 4, I believe. And then when you do your Windows updates, it gets a newer version. So we meet all of the, and then we need a .NET framework. So that might need to be installed, but we'll find out in a second. That's a quick installation if we need to do it. All right, so we are now going to go through the steps for the individual installation. The first thing that we need to do is we got to check some things in PowerShell. They want us to go to our administrative shell to get ready to install this, and then we're going to launch PowerShell to do our install. So I'm going to go to my Windows Start button, and I have my PowerShell tool right here available to me. If you don't see it there, you can scroll down a list, go to your Windows options down here on the side, and there's one for PowerShell that you can click on and select. Notice that PowerShell is similar to our terminal that we looked at, similar to the Windows command line. It's text-based, and it's going to utilize different commands in order to execute things on your system. In order to install Chocolatey, though, we got to make sure that we can run certain administrative commands. So the first thing we're going to do to ensure that is we're going to run this command called get execution policy, because we want to make sure that it's not restricted. So get that. We're going to say get -x, and I want to hit tab. That's not enough. Execute. There we go. Execution policy. PowerShell has something called tab completion. So if you type enough of a command and that command is unique enough, you can just hit tab and it'll finish writing it out for you. So my execution policy is remote signed. They want us to change the policy to bypass, and then that'll make sure that we're able to run the command. So they have the command they want you to run right here. So we can actually just copy that, go back to PowerShell, and paste it with Control V, and then run it. And now not only is it put in PowerShell in the correct mode, it's also installing Chocolatey. All right. So it looks like that was successful. So I'm going to clear my screen, and I'm going to minimize this for a second. We're going to test it to see if we can now launch Chocolatey. So to launch it from PowerShell, you're going to type the keyword Choco. So I'm going to get, where's my PowerShell? There we go. And then I'm going to do a dash question mark, and that should give me a list of commands available in Chocolatey. And you see that it did. It told me it gave me a long kind of command list. But this is just a good test to let us know that Chocolatey installed, because it's not a default program that's available to you in PowerShell. So the fact that this command works means that everything is installed correctly. So now that we have Chocolatey installed, we have a window into Chocolatey's software repository. And that's what a real power of Chocolatey is. They, similar to Nanite, have a huge software library with programs that have already been packaged up and streamlined so that they can be installed in an automated fashion. In order to see that that database or that repository of software, we can go to their products page, go to open source, and then we can search for Chocolatey packages. And I'm going to go ahead and accept that the cookies and say I understand the disclaimer. And then right here in the search box, we can search for the program we're looking for, but just scrolling down to show you some of the stuff that's available. So we got Adobe in there. There's Google Chrome right there. And it not only does it show us the package, you know, when it who packaged it up, when it was posted, how many times it's been downloaded. It also gives us the Chocolatey command line that we can run to install that package from PowerShell. It's just a matter of copying that command and then pasting it into our PowerShell window. Or if we wanted to write a script, if we wanted to install like multiple software applications at the same time, we could write a script, a PowerShell script, and we can just include these different Chocolatey commands in that script, and it'll automate, you know, several software installations all at once. There's tons of these packages, so that's why we got a nice search bar to work with. And we're going to be searching for a program called Spiceworks. Spiceworks is a open source kind of full-featured enterprise management tool. So it has a couple of different components to it. One of the primary component is this main Spiceworks server. This is going to give you network monitoring. It has a help desk ticketing system. You're able to do endpoint inventory, so like inventory of your computer systems and the software running on them. You can run reports and do tons of stuff. So this is a cool tool to play around with if you want to learn about network, how to manage a enterprise's resources. This is a free way that you can play around with that and learn how to do it. So I'm going to copy that install for Spiceworks. So that the command will be Choco install Spiceworks, and I'm going to come back over to my command line. Just right click and paste it in there, and then hit enter. It's installing the package now. Do I want it to run the script? Yes, go ahead. It's doing my Spiceworks installation, or download rather, to prepare for the installation. And now it's automating the actual install. All right, so this is Spiceworks. Like I said, it's pretty full-featured software. The install might take a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and pause and come back. Okay, we're back again. Looks like Spiceworks finished up its installation without any issues. We can go on to the server, and then you see that there's our Spiceworks desktop. Launch that to see it run. And this would actually be a good screenshot to add to your deliverables for this lab for. All right, so this is our last installation. When I'm now on the my Ubuntu server, and we're going to be installing MySQL. So MySQL again is a database, a database management system. It's an open source tool. They have an enterprise version of it that a lot of companies use, but there's also an open source version that's freely available for anybody to play around with. So this is another kind of enterprise tool that's good to deploy in maybe a lab, so you can get used to working with these types of applications and installing them. So from our Ubuntu server, since it's in GUI mode only, you're not going to have things to point and click on, so we have to rely on the command line in order to do this full installation. So I'm going to go ahead and get logged into my server. So remember my username. And password. And the passwords don't show up in Linux. I was successful though, because otherwise I wouldn't have a prompt. So this should look really familiar. It looks just like our terminal in the client version of Ubuntu. But in this instance, the terminal is all we have. All right, so first thing that we're going to do to get our SQL application, our MySQL software installed onto the system, is we need to run a update of the apt-get command. So apt-get again is what Ubuntu uses to access the Linux repository of software. So we looked at a couple different repositories already. We saw that we have that chocolatey repository of software that's already packaged. We had the night, but Linux is one of the kind of the cool things about Linux is they have a huge repository of software that you can tap into directly from their command line. And in Linux, or rather in an Ubuntu, you're going to use the apt-get command to access that repository. So we're going to do apt-get, and then to make sure that we have the latest and greatest version of the software repository, we're going to run a command called update with that. All right, this is a sudo command. Again, it wants our root password, or my root password, so I'll give it that. It liked it, so now it's running a update. So we're going to let that do its thing, and I'll pause and come back once it's finished running the update. All right, the update's completed. So now that we know that we have the latest and greatest version of apt-get, we're going to run another command. Let me clear my screen so you can see. And this is going to be sudo apt-get, and we're going to do an install of MySQL SQL -server. So it's reaching out there, it's finding that particular program and all of what they call the dependencies. A dependency in this software installation process is going to be other programs that core program rely on in order for it to run. apt-get is a really good package manager because it finds those dependencies for you. Some other package managers, they make you figure that stuff out on your own. You install a core program and then try to run it, and it just doesn't work. But with apt-get, it's going to make sure that you have all the pieces of the puzzle to make sure that your software installation installs and runs the way you intended it to. So now Again, it's installing all the parts. So we'll let that bake, and I'll be back. So the installation just finished. Everything looks like it installed successfully. So I'm gonna clear my screen. And the next command we're gonna run is a command to allow some additional utilities for MySQL to be installed. So this is another sudo command. I'm going to type sudo MySQL _secure _installation. And this is a utility. I can't spell today. So now we're securing our MySQL server. It wants to set up a password. So I am going to set up a password for this. And I'm going to set up a medium password. So that's a level 1. And I'm confirming my password. And I'm going to confirm that I'm going to remove my anonymous users. So you have to have a password to sign into my MySQL database. And I'm going to disallow remote root user access. So this is just getting more into the configuration for SQL. I'm going to keep the test database. And I'm going to reload the privileges table. And we're all done. So now I'm just going to cycle some services. So a service is basically a component of a software program that runs in the background to help the overall program function the way it's intended to. Most times, when a program launches, there are going to be some services that have to be turned on in order to enable the program to launch. There'll be other softwares that kind of hang out in the background until they're needed. Then when the program needs their services, they'll activate and do whatever they need to do, and then they'll shut themselves back down. So there are some services that are necessary in order for a program to launch. So in order to so one of the things that you'll always do, or that you can do when troubleshooting or investigating a program, is you can check to see what services are related to it and what the state of those services are, whether they're running or they're not running, whether they're set to delayed start, things of that nature. Right now, though, in order to make sure that our SQL server, our MySQL server is running correctly, we're just going to do a precautionary reboot or restart of those services. Again, this is going to be another sudo command because this restarting services is definitely an administrative task. So we'll do super user do or sudo, and then we're going to do system ctl. So system control, and then we're going to enable the MySQL service. So we're enabling MySQL. And then we're going to follow that up with a start. Now we're going to start the service up. So same command, except this time instead of saying enable, we're going to say start MySQL. And that service should be up and running now. And one way we can test to make sure the service is up and running is we can try running the command MySQL. Oh, I gotta sudo that. And notice that since I gave it the sudo command, which is saying, okay, run this under root credentials, the command then executed correctly, and my prompts changed. My prompt's no longer W Sanders, Ubuntu server, MySQL. Now my prompt is set to MySQL because I am now inside of the MySQL application. And you can see here, I even have a welcome message. It says, welcome to MySQL Monitor. It's telling me the copyright date. It's letting me know that this is an Oracle product. And then it's, again, give me that MySQL prompt. So now I can start issuing commands that are specific to the MySQL program. And then this, which would be, database related commands. All right, so this is your splash page that I want to see, or your screenshot that I want to see as evidence for the MySQL installation. I should be able to see your user prompt, and then I should be able to see the MySQL command ready there, waiting to receive some options. All right, and that is it for Lab 4.